Howdy, friends. This is Adam Ganser stopping by just to thank you so much for listening to us and all of our precious projects on the Small Beans Patreon. And if you have a couple extra bucks and haven't signed up for our $5 tier, I wanted to let you know there is some of the best entertainment anywhere on the internet just waiting for your listening pleasure. This includes episodes of I'll Show You Mine If You Show Me Yours, Spiel Boys, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and coming soon some very secret but very awesome projects we can't wait to show you. If you got the money and you feel like it, we'd sure love to have it. And thanks so much for listening to Small Beans.
It's time for dads now. Look, it's all about dads. I don't want you talking about anything but dads, 'cause it's all dads now. Yeah, it's Inside Dads. Yeah, it's Inside Dads. It's
inside of them.
Inside Dads.
Inside
Welcome
of
back.
the dads.
It's episode, what is this now? 7?
No.
Yeah. It's episode 7, baby.
Counting is for chumps.
That's right. That's one of our opinions here at Inside Dads.
Write
So,
it down.
The deal with this podcast is that we're going to talk about dad movies. I'm Abe Epperson, and I'm here with Dave Bell. Say hi, Dave.
Hi.
And guess what? We can't get enough of your Harrison Fords, your Kevin Costners, your Bruce Willises, and your Russell's Crowe.
Yeah, we really get a lot of Russell's Crowe in this, don't we?
You know, that dad shit.
Yeah, he's really fallen into this, and I mean, we've only scratched the surface, man. But I mean, I guess Liam Neeson also. These are the more modern dad, like not much more modern, but like, you know, you got your Kevin's Costner and like early dad film folk, you know. I would say your De Niro's, Pacino, and now there's like a slightly newer generation. And I feel like Russell Crowe is part of that. And I'm wondering about Christian Bale, having watched this movie, if he's going to show up more. But we'll get to that.
He might. He's like an artistic dad, which is,
yeah,
you know,
artsy
we'll
dad.
talk about exactly what makes a dad film happen, because that's kind of what this is. You hit the nail right on the head. We're talking about like the 90s and 2000s era, because obviously boomers had their Gary Cooper and whatnots.
Right.
You know, they had their John's Wayne. But here we're just talking about what affected our age group, our generation. And Hollywood, I mean, for decades has been telling us what it means to be a dad. And they make movies designed specifically for dads to fucking love, and they fucking love it.
Are you saying fuck and love?
Fuck and love it. Yeah.
Okay.
So what's the nature of the Hollywood dad is our question. What does culture say that it means to be a dad? And to do that, Dave, we need to get inside this dad.
Yeah, we do. And this dad, this specific dad is, can I introduce the movie? Can I say what the movie is?
Say the movie.
It's 3:10 to Yuma. A film I had basically never seen before. And what I mean by basically is that I did see it once, and I remembered nothing about it. And in fact, I remembered it wrong. I thought there was action scenes on a train in this movie. I could have sworn there was like a train robbery, and that's not in this at all. I think I saw it like either drunk or sleep deprived or something, like the first time I saw it.
Or on a train, maybe.
Maybe on a train. First time I saw it, I didn't have all my faculties at that moment. So like this was pretty much the first time I had seen this movie. I knew it was, you know, Western, which makes it an automatic dad film, right? You got guns, horses, you got poop, you got camping, you got war and war veterans. So like Westerns, you know, pick a Western. We talked about Unforgiven on. We could have watched the Shootist. We could have watched anything. It's fucking Shane. It doesn't matter.
Absolutely,
it's all a dad film for this genre, you know.
It really Western really captures a lot of the dad ethos, so to speak.
Yeah, even Blazing Saddles, Western comedy. That's a dad film.
And well, this one in particular, because we're trying to, like, as we're forming these subgenres of dad, because it is a full-blown genre at this point, this is classic daddy v daddy, right? You got a outlaw with a gang, and you got a man with a past who just wants to live a humble life, and events just force them to become adversaries.
Oh yeah, we should also note this is the remake.
Yes,
right?
This is an old school, yeah.
So this is like a newer. I feel like we've been covering kind of newer daddy films recently, in the sense that like newer. This is a remake, so this came out in 2007. As opposed to the original, which was 1957. So I just wanted to flag that, like Master and Commander is a newer one. There's what else? Well, we'll get to the next film. I also want to note that I really liked this film. It was a good film.
James Mangold directed.
Who I don't tend to like his movies, but I really liked this movie.
This movie is pretty streamlined, although the stuff that I think we're really going to dive into, if I'm calling my shot, so to speak, is that like really the neo-Western aspect of it, like the anti-hero aspect of it, which is less pronounced in the original. I don't know if you've seen the original 310 to Yuma. 310 to Yuma, there is some of that stuff in there, but it's like it really took us like an Unforgiven to like go like like neo-Western is a real thing, and now all Westerns are that kind of like morality is, you know, semi-problematic in general for a lot of a lot of these characters, and trying to suss through it is kind of the navigation of the movie. That is true about 310 to Yuma, but in all versions, although I haven't read the short story, but it's very pronounced in this
because
movie.
I was going to say, what's the point of this movie without the ending? Like the movie is essentially, again, spoilers, obviously, about a man basically like a terrible man growing to respect this other man so much that he essentially turns himself into the police for this first guy. To help his family. So like it's a
bromance.
Yeah, and it's a very like that feels like a Western plot. Because it's all about this the emotions between these two men, and like they you know, it's a very like that's a tough turn to do.
That's a
like,
tough turn.
You have to spend basically the whole film chipping away at Russell Crowe's character in order for that to happen. And I think they did a good job. I think Russell Crowe and Christian Bale are both pretty good in this. They don't have to like, you know, the beauty of Westerns is everybody's grizzled and hide their feelings. So like you don't need them to act, I guess. Not that they're not good actors, but they just have to like
be stoic.
Stoic and quietly have these like moments of respect. And then at the end, like he does the thing, and you're like, yeah, that makes sense. Ben Foster is really the guy who has to fucking act in this.
Yeah, and he kills it too. Yeah, it's definitely true that like this is a bromance, and I think we're gonna talk a lot about that. But also something that I noticed a lot about this, like in this new viewing, is that they do little hints out of like Russell Crowe just kind of wants to leave this life. Like he isn't designed for it. He's kind of got an imposter syndrome. He's a rotten man, but he doesn't truly act like it.
Right, that's the whole thing. Ben Foster, and there's other movies like this.
Just rotten.
Yeah, I think it happens a lot of like crime gang movies where like there's always that the person with like the maniac eyes who are like, no, you want to do crime, we're doing fucking crime. Where it's like that what have I done situation where it's like he's leading this life, like what did he expect? But at the same time he is very much like what it's Russell Crowe is he's learning that he has a moral line, and the line is further than most people, but for the first time in his life, he actually hits it. He
hits it. That's right.
I
think that's right. And we get that a lot in dad films. I think it's more the sentimental dad, the introspective dad.
Yeah,
but it's there definitely.
Well, I was saving this for the next segment, but the big picture of this, what makes this really dad, is it's really at its core about trying to make a travel appointment, which is a very dad situation. They're trying to make the 310 to Yuma. We got to get on that plane. We got to get there.
And that one scene where they're like, where they stop and put down their guns and put on some Birkenstocks and some cargo shorts.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like that's the best scene in the movie,
packs.
really.
Yeah, it's a road trip film. We're going to get to this fucking place, whether it kills us or not. We're going to make that goddamn appointment.
We
can't stop it south of the borders. No
I will
wall
turn
drug.
this thing around.
Yeah, exactly. We're getting there. We're getting to fucking Disney. And that is really the vibe of this. It's just a road trip. There's also it's a competing about, like, you know, it's a dad who doesn't feel dad enough, who has to prove his dadness against a bad dad, for he's the dad of this, you know, group of outlaws.
That's what makes it all so sweet.
Yeah, and he proves his dadness so much that the bad dad becomes a good dad, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. One dad's so hard that he makes the other dad feel like he's got to become more dad.
Yep.
If that makes sense.
Because ultimately, and this will come up a lot, it's about the principle of it. It's the principle.
It's about the philosophical point, you know, the ethos.
It's why dads spend hours with customer service. Honey, it's fine. No, it's not fine.
I will not stop for directions. We got this. We're self-contained.
It's the fucking principle of it.
It's the principle of it.
Yep.
So this movie starts, and we have an immediate Kevin Durant.
Yeah. It's whenever he shows up, I'm like, oh, shit.
And you can look that actor up, and you're like, oh, yeah, that guy.
Teeth.
And he's always a dick. He's always a dick.
He has a face where he went into acting and was like, they're like, listen, the agent's like, you only got one role. That's it. This is it for you.
Yeah, you're going to be a dick to somebody at some point.
Yeah.
And in this movie, he's a dick to Christian Bale because he's working for this guy, this rich guy, Hollander. So he's like this lieutenant, this hired gun that essentially arrives at Christian Bale's shitty ass, like, it's point of the movie. They're like, your ranch is shitty. You have like few sheep and it's a shitty ranch. But he's got a barn on it. And he's like, give me money, Christian Bale, or we're gonna like kill your family, basically. And he burns down his barn.
Dads are in debt. That's what
dads are in debt. They're trying to make it work the best they can. So that endears us to Christian Bale's character. And he has a son, which also endears. We know his penis works.
Yeah. Oh, and that's sorry. Dad is in debt. Dad also lies to his wife about being in debt. That's how that works. Whether it's fucking
the women folk out of
whatever it's the IRS or gambling debts, loans. No, dads are in debt, and they don't talk about their debt with the other people in their life.
And it's so basically we start in this kind of position where it's positing about the world, like so many dad movies do, if not all of them, argue the world is cruel and unfair, and for the most part it's run by evil men or men who are out to get honest men at the very least.
Yes.
And there's a situation that I think starts from, it's in the first scene and it's super important to the movie, which is kind of something we haven't talked about in this podcast yet, which is fathers and sons, literal fathers and sons.
That aren't Robert Duvall and Robert Downey Jr. Like
true.
Father, I think it's father.
That's actually
and
true. There's a little bit of that.
Well, it's moody teenage sons. The worst thing for a dad, right?
Dad ass,
life as a house, goth ass teenage sons, like that bullshit.
I fucking hate you, son.
Yeah, and his dadness is put into question immediately. And who better to test the dadness than a teenage son? They are the ultimate.
Than his own, what spawned from his loins.
Yeah, and they often test dadness. He says to his son, "I'll take care of this," and his son says, "No, you won't.
You won't.
Yeah.
You ain't man enough, Pa."
Yep.
And so his character and his disposition is immediately called into question. He's basically calling Christian Bale a coward, which, as we know, to dads is just, that just cuts you down.
Yep.
You can't be that. Of all things, you can't be that.
You can't be that.
But we'll see how this goes. This is a common Western thing. We all know this. And Christian Bale's... He has 2 sons, actually, but one's just too young to matter.
Yeah, he doesn't matter. He doesn't have a name.
But they're very into the idea of, like, as retribution for this act, you should just go out and murder Hollander and Kevin Durand. But he's like, no, I'm going to go into town, and I'm just going to ask him nicely. Yeah. Violence is not the answer. Just ask him to rebuild my barn, because obviously he got out of hand. And they're like, no, you dumb shit. That's not how the world works. And actually, the kids are right about that. I mean, in this world, that's never going to work.
And they're like, there's a new train coming, and your land is worth more with you off of it. And so it's about progress, right? Something dads hate. Is coming. It's coming there.
And there's an interaction between Christian Bale and his wife that is I wanted to highlight, which is just that he makes the decision, I'm going to go do this. And she goes, we're supposed to make decisions together, citing a kind of contract between the two of them. And his response is, would you have made it any different? And I think that is important about the psychology of dad, about getting out of, that line of questioning, because it's like, due to necessity, I am right. Regardless of how I act towards you, my intentions are infallible. Right. Because at the end of the day, I'm right. I just need to do what I need to do. And that is, that's where we start. That's where we're starting with Christian Bale's character.
Yes.
And on the other hand, we immediately get scenes where we see the Russell Crowe of it all.
Yeah, and we know this is competing dads who are going to collide.
Yeah, and our boy Crowe happens to draw birds, Dave.
Yeah,
I thought this was relevant. I don't know why, but, just it's like such a dad thing to just like throw in there. Also, he has a hobby. Why not? Dads have hobbies.
He draws, but it's not wimpy because he also kills people.
What I like is that he signs his bird drawing in case people want to commission his bird art.
Yes. And you never know. Maybe he's just waiting, he's just waiting.
He's just waiting. He's like, it's more of an argument that this is not truly his nature, right?
Right.
And he wants an out. He has Ben Foster, who we mentioned, who helps him run his gang.
Who has, he's like the universal, also like son, like actor. It feels like he also has permanent I'm gonna die in this film face. Like whenever I look at his face, I'm like, oh, that man is gonna die in this film.
That man is not long for this world.
Even when he doesn't, he has the face of a person who's gonna die in a film.
Mm-hmm. And so what they're doing is they're robbing a stagecoach, classic Western.
Yeah.
And a man shoots. It's great. A man shoots another man's satchel that has dynamite in it.
A horse explodes in the first 10 minutes.
It's so good. The stagecoach flips over. Just real dad stuff.
For the record, that horse had it coming. That horse is a criminal.
Dude, I saw how that horse was talking, and it was not a good horse. That needed to be put down.
Something about this in our next film we're going to cover. I love that dad films try, if they can, to have an explosion in the first 10 minutes. That's important.
Yeah. Because dads don't have a lot of, patience, and they just want to be known. Okay, what are you capable of?
Right.
What are you as a movie capable of? Yeah. Explosions? Yes, I'm in. So, yeah, the stage flips over because Christian Bale, who happens to be there,
he's rounding up the herd with his.
He's rounding up his herd to get because the fire caused that.
That's
but it's
Western
this
dad.
Classic. Wrong place, wrong time kind of idea.
But it's also like round up the herd. I think every dad like fantasizes of taking their sons to round up the herd. He's doing the daddy thing.
Yeah, you think it's symbolic at all? They uses it as a
little bit
as a roadblock to stop evil men.
Yep.
sheep, a bunch of innocent white sheep. But yeah, that's exactly what he does. He's taking the herd, and then he's like sees that the stagecoach is coming and there's a guns ablazing, and he just does this little move. He could have not, but he does this little move to cause the sheep to kind of go into the
It's
path.
cattle, by the way. It's cattle.
Oh, it's cattle. Sorry, yeah. And that in that moment, he's now tied together with Russell Crowe because this starts a bunch of events. And, you know, Russell Crowe's gang of, you know, criminals basically kill everybody.
Right. Well, except for one guy. And I want to talk about this because he shoots the guy and he says, I ain't going to kill you like this. And the lawman, the Pinkerton, says, I'll come for you. He says, I'd be disappointed if you didn't. And we're getting a very important thing. Reverence for the system.
Yes.
Lawman got a law. Criminals got a crime.
Yep.
We're going to talk about this way more in the next movie, too. It's that moderate view of the world, right? Like, you got to have both sides. The world, that's how the world works, you know, the balance.
Yep,
you need criminals and you need lawmen to catch them.
And I'm on this side. And we also see how Russell Crowe does things. One of his men is taken hostage at one point by one of the quote good guys, and he just kills his man and then his enemy.
Yeah, daddies don't compromise, and like people make he's got to teach the guy about his mistakes. He should have checked the carriage better.
He should have done it better. Also, it shows that Russell Crowe, you think he just doesn't care about life. But I think as we're going to learn about, as we learn more about Russell Crowe, he doesn't care about these shitbags.
Yeah.
There's a small difference to make that in that little difference is the daddy. And
Ben Foster should see this moment and learn something from it. Like, Ben Foster makes a very bad decision later in this film. And like, this is the moment that he should constantly be thinking about of like, I don't know, maybe he doesn't give a shit about me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But no, he's just like, no, he's just a good leader. In fact, Christian Bale's boy, after seeing Russell Crowe do this event, goes, damn, he's fast.
Yeah. He's a daddy. He's challenging he's the villain and he's challenging the daddiness of Christian Bale.
Yeah, he's like, I'll take your son.
He's better than, yeah. There's this idea that the son is maybe thinking about crime, doing crime.
Or he fills the role better than Christian Bale does. And that's the fear of all daddies, is that some other daddy will come and take your son.
Right, because Christian Bale's whole thing is as we learn more and more, like he's scared of being seen as a coward. We know eventually we know he hurt his leg in the war, but we don't know how right away.
Not right away.
And so like there's this feeling of like Russell Crowe is like, coming in, slapping his big dick around and showing up Christian Bale.
Yeah. And just to kind of yada yada out of this event, Russell Crowe takes Christian Bale's horses. He doesn't want him to tell the authorities about the crime that he just witnessed. And Christian Bale's boy is like, Dad, you suck.
It's real dad code though, because he's like, he gives the horses back. And also he's like, those are my cattle. I want them back. And he's like, I don't want your cattle. And so it's like Christian Bale, he's not a snitch. And he's
not a snitch.
I need to, this is the start of a pattern, which is that dads like the quiet in every way. And so like there's a lot of don't talk to him or keep your mouth shut or don't sing. Don't keep me up. There's a lot of that in this movie.
I have more on that later with specific. I think it comes from a specific place for sure.
Keep your mouth shut.
Russell Crowe also does this bit after the stagecoach robbery where he has Ben Foster tell the authorities to run back to town, like to tell the authorities that there was a robbery just down the road. So basically that he can do this pincer move that they can hide in plain sight for a little bit. Like they can go and enjoy town and run the town for like maybe a few hours.
Yeah.
Which shows that Russell Crowe uses guile. Like any true daddy, he's clever out of the box kind of strategies.
Yep.
But he's not a good dad, you see. As we find, he seduces a barmaid, which is a big no-no.
Yeah, but his dick works.
But his dick works. And, daddies have wives, not barmaids. So what are we, animals? Right. And so that makes Christian Bale the true daddy because we know his dick works. and he has a wife.
Right.
So
I mean,
that's
it's
the difference.
bad dad versus good dad. He draws her, so like that's wicked romantic and junk.
That's so cool.
He also toasts to Tommy and says Tommy was weak, Tommy was stupid, Tommy is dead. That's the guy he killed. He then gives a proverb about how if you open your mouth, it gets you in trouble. Because again, dads don't like too much talking. They like quiet. Be quiet.
It's all about actions, baby.
Yeah.
So, cut back to Christian Bale, who's still on the road.
Oh, one more thing. It's true that the barmaid stuff, but hitting on a bartender is a very dad energy thing. Divorced dad energy, specifically. So that's all.
Yeah, he's about to order a margarita.
Yeah, exactly. He's on vacation.
He's on vacation. Christian Bale is back on the trail. Tells his kids, don't swear, which I love.
Yeah.
Because they start swearing up a storm, and he's just like, stop it. It's an act of true dad. Russell Crowe basically shows in a moment by leaving. He actually does what he says. He's like, I'll leave your horses. Like, I don't want to like steal your horses. I'm going to leave them on the road to Brisbane. And
it's
so
the principles.
Yep. It's all about like the integrity of, you know, being an honest man. That doesn't mean that you can't kill people. He's not a monster.
Right. He asks for money. Christian Bale has to be brave and say, like, because he sees Russell Crowe and he doesn't snitch because dads, again, they stay quiet. But he does take him aside and ask for money for his cattle because some of them got hurt. And again, it's the principle of it.
Yes.
It's not that much money, but he's owed that money. And Russell Crowe respects that. And
I think
he does it. He gives him the money because it's the reverence for the principle of
the reverence for the principle. And I wanted to point out something that I think is key here is that some dad movies are about fighting monsters, you know, like there be monsters, you know, but I think more often than not, it's about fighting other men and men of different integrities. Like it's to emphasize, and this is what I really wanted to get out about this movie, and it's what this movie seems to be like in the DNA. It's every scene is to emphasize in this gray world where there's complexities of morality, we need men of black and white. It validates basically what most monolithic tales are about, that vigilantism and justice actually can be the same thing if it's in the right hands. Because secretly all dads just want to be like Batman, basically.
Yeah.
And so it's like we'll touch more on this later as like the examples come up. But just kind of like if you're rewatching the movie or whatnot, just think about all the moments where they try to emphasize the grayness of the world, about how it's just like, he's a good guy, but he's a bad guy. But this is
right,
like
because
circumstances, you know?
And it's again that they both have this respect for the larger thing. So like the lawmen in this, specifically the railroad men, are seen as bureaucratic wimps, right?
Right.
They're the middlemen, the sniveling middlemen. They don't like the sight of blood. They're fancy boys. They're throwing around the money. But Christian Bale and Russell Crowe, they're patriots. Christian Bale says he protected Washington during the Civil War. Because again, dad films, racism, not a problem.
Not a problem. Not an issue.
Not a thing.
Solve
the good guys, they aren't racist, even in Western.
Can't solve that one.
Russell Crowe later, he's like, you done the Apaches wrong. And I'm like, I think this man would probably be racist, but they have to do the thing where it's like, no, he's not racist, actually.
Actually,
they have to get their cake and eat it too with this stuff, because also the Native Americans are a threat in this. But they hate bureaucracy, but they respect the larger system, the America freedom. Being free on the West, you know, the system of cops and robbers.
Spirit. Yeah.
But not those sniveling railroad types who are there to run them out of a honest living, which is like what kind of Russell Crowe is trying to make himself out to be doing as well. Like it's like, you know, a farmer making an honest living, a bank robber making an honest living, robbing the big city people, like the railroads again, not the individuals. You know, they aren't robbing random people. they aren't killing civilians. There's an honor to all of this.
There's honor. You know what else we got in this movie? We got Alan Tudyk.
Yeah,
and
we
he
do.
plays a full-on science man. We have surgery in this movie, Dave.
Science daddy. Yeah, we have.
It's not self-surgery, but it is surgery.
It is surgery.
And he's got jars of animals and dead pigs and whatnot. Yep. So it's just something that we noticed as we watch these movies is daddies like to dabble in science.
Oh, yeah.
There's a guy around that is a really big nerd, and they're like, yeah, we like to keep him around.
Oh, yeah. You always have the science nerd, yeah.
Always got to have a science guy
and they're gonna
in your dad movie.
Figure out cool shit to do. You know what dads also do? They bring criminals back to the house without asking permission from their family.
Yes, they do.
Daddies put, whether it's setting up a generator indoors or going outside during a storm, dads put their families in danger. Don't want them to be wimps.
Right. So the looking for Hollander basically now, once that he's Christian Bale has basically gotten back his horses, we get the meeting between the two daddies in town because now the authorities are out. But we have, we have Christian Bale, we have Russell Crowe's in the hotel or the bar saloon. And Christian Bale complains, look, 2 of my herd died when, that accident happened. Russell Crowe is just immediately like, yeah, I'll just pay you off. And we realize, all of this chatting was a ruse. Christian Bale was keeping him talking to allow deputies to essentially get the jump on Russell Crowe. So we get now in this film, within the first 25 minutes, we've gotten double daddy trickery and guile. Both of these guys will do things outside of the box and unexpected in order to achieve their goals.
Yes.
And Russell Crowe, so now he's kind of captured, and Russell Crowe laughs at the weaselly railroad men that you were referring to, who recites his crimes, which is something that I think all dads want, is even if they're crimes, we want someone to recite our deeds.
Yes.
Daddies love it when it's just a list of the things you've accomplished.
Oh, yeah.
And the railroad man basically forms a posse in this small town to get Russell Crowe to the authorities in another town, Yuma, because that's where a train is. And he hires Christian Bale because, quote, he was the best shot in his regiment.
Yeah. And Christian Bale needs money.
And Christian Bale really needs money because of all of the, his
$200.
shitty ranch.
They're paying him $200, which is I don't know, $1 million then? Who can say?
Now, I wanted to mention this Gray thing again, because in this conversation about they're like, all right, so, Christian Bale, you're gonna be a part of this posse. He's asked, who'd you fight for, the North or the South? And we find out Christian Bale fought for the North, but the railroad is Southern formed, but Chicago run.
Yeah.
And I think that that's important because remember, this movie wants to think about the world as an entirely gray place. It's a series of complexities we must cut through and find a way to do the righteous thing. And what I think is important is in a dad movie, righteousness is determined by deeds, not necessarily thoughts or history. History, yes, those are deeds, but those are in the past, right. Who was on what side of the Civil War? That's irrelevant to the now.
Yeah.
And while we know it's not always true that a gray situation can be simplified, it is very dad to attempt to do so. And this goes into every decision the movie makes. Russell Crowe has some integrity. Ben Foster is bloodthirsty. Christian Bale's son thinks he's a coward, but Christian Bale himself finds members of the posse that he's about to go into unlikable and lacking integrity. So it's not like white hat, black hat, which is very much what the original 310 to Yuma was. The world is like kind of this whirlpool of moral decisions, and we want someone who can lead the ship to cut right through it, baby.
Oh yeah,
because that's what a dad ought to provide.
And Russell Crowe kind of, he's threatening. He's like scratching at the door, because they bring him basically. The gambit is we'll bring him back to my house to meet my children and wife and have dinner. While we send the carriage out to be a distraction. And Russell Crowe,
clever and works.
Oh yeah, it's clever. It is clever. Russell Crowe has to have dinner, and he basically is trying to be the daddy at the dinner table. He's fucking Christian Bale cuts his meat for him. He compliments his wife's green eyes because he has a green eye fetish, as we established with the bartender as well.
He quotes Proverbs because he's a Christian man, but he does scare the shit out of the women and children by talking about but
when he hits on the wife, she fucking loves it. He's like, I love your green eyes. And she's like, I am into you. Well, she says, he's not what I pictured.
He's not what I pictured. Yeah,
Christian Bale is just like, when he's cutting his meat fuming. Like a child cutting his dad's meat. Russell Crowe he's like, I'm your daddy right now in this moment. You cut my meat for me. I'm your dad.
Yeah.
He's furious,
And you feel how Russell Crowe, and this is a scene that I actually think Russell Crowe is very good in because it does show there's this feeling of violence throughout the scene. No violence is really being truly discussed.
No.
But you just get the sense that he's just so cool and collected and so at calm in the situation that he shouldn't be.
Yeah, well,
that it's very off-putting.
Can't stress enough the dinner table is the battleground for daddies.
That's where kind of your domain.
Who's going to say grace? All that shit that they debate over, and it's it's been their dinner table has been tested. Right. Christian Bale's fucking hospitality. He's trying to be the better dad. Cutting his meat. It's this is all below me,
right.
You're just a scoundrel and we're entertaining you. But when you'll be gone, you'll be hung and I'll still be the daddy here.
But Christian Bale in the same instant is furious the whole time because he has the vibe.
Yeah.
He's picking up the vibe that Russell Crowe, given the chance, if needed, would just kill his family.
Oh yeah.
And that's the part obviously that Christian Bale
honestly, I get that vibe from Russell Crowe all the time.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Just then, we get clear indications that Russell Crowe's crew is scoping out the home, and I love this. Just as a dad movie lover, I love this because it really shows how terrifying this situation would be, because the gang is out there and they're like fucking jackals. They're hyenas out there. They're taking pop shots, but then they're like, no, I'm not gonna attack you tonight. We're just going to wait you out, motherfucker. We're following you. It's going to be fine. Biding our time, hunting you, essentially.
I love the West where it's man, you can't call in more cops? Jesus. And they're like, yeah, we could. It'll take a week.
Yeah, exactly. You're this needs to be resolved now.
Yeah.
Before we leave the Homestead sequences, there's this idea of capitulating to his wife's wants. Christian Bale basically is told, don't go do this, don't fight, no one will think less of you. And he responds, no one can think less of me. Ooh. And it reveals how his own children think he's a coward. He thinks he's a coward. And important part for deconstructing the philosophy of dad, or the psychology rather of dad, is that because he listens to his wife, that's a less daddy thing to do.
Oh yeah.
But not anymore, goddammit.
It's yes and no, because I would argue, and this is all over, this is everything from mob movies to westerns to action. One of the Daddy 101, a dad provides. They provide for their family. And so there are
on
cases
their own.
where where like you know, like if a dad spends all his money gambling and the wife is like, you got to stop doing that, he should listen to her, right? That is the flaw, because ultimately a dad has to provide. That is the number one goal. If he can do it without listening to his family, that is an extra bonus. But he has to provide. And that's what Christian Bale is doing here, where she's like, you don't have to do this. And it's like, no, I have to provide. That's it. That's no question about it, you know?
No question. Yeah. And we get on the road, and one night Russell Crowe starts blabbing about if he had Christian Bale's wife, he'd treat her better, give her things.
Quick thing that happens right before this, the what's his name takes Russell Crowe's horse. He says, it's my horse now. He doesn't have honor. Russell Crowe gives back
Kevin
horses.
Durand, yeah.
Kevin Durand takes horses. And so, like, they're setting up that he is a man without honor.
Quote, right
Kevin
side,
Durand.
but
that's all. Without horse
he's
honor.
kind of like a Ben Foster type.
Yep. Yes. And he's on the quote-unquote legal side, and he's a bully without honor. Just wanted to get that out. But yeah, they're on the road.
For sure. That's because in all this moral complexity about like the world being gray and people being on different sides and having different, levels of integrity, there's a code.
Yep.
And that code knows no colors, so to speak.
Exactly.
So I love this sequence at night where he's like, I'll give her a better life. Because you're poor, and I would give her, everything she ever wanted. And the reason that you don't have, what she needs is because you just don't take what you want, which is, like what a dad would do if a dad didn't have principles, right?
But a dad has to provide. He's basically saying you're not providing.
You're not a provider in the way that I'm a provider, and it's because I take what I want. And he's goading Christian Bale, which comes back at him when Kevin Durant takes over the watch shift, and he starts goading Russell Crowe by saying, like, you're going to hang in the morning. And we flash forward a few hours, and Russell Crowe is just going to town on Kevin Durant's neck with a fork.
Yeah, because... You don't keep a dad awake at night. You gotta be quiet. Again, dad's films, quiet. You don't snitch. You keep your mouth shut. You don't sing while he's trying to sleep. And you don't take his horse. This Kevin Durant has no honor, and he's not quiet. Don't keep a dad awake. You're going to get stabbed in the neck.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It kind of goes along with that is the idea of how do these two archetypes deal with provocation. In one case, with Russell Crowe, it was restraint. This is something we saw in like Master and Commander. Or you deal in the class of Russell Crowe, where it's just complete darkness, just murder the man, just undo that problem. And again, the movie wants to present this world as gray and does so, but it also needs to make maneuvers to make it more monochromatic, so that at the end we feel righteous in its resolution.
Right, again, because we're seeing the code. Russell Crowe, he's not going to kill Christian Bale. It's kind of like Hannibal Lecter, where at one point they're like, why don't they kill you? And she's like, oh, he would consider that rude. It's that idea, which is like, there is still a higher honor that Russell Crowe clearly has. Kevin Durant had no honor. He stole horses. He was a shitty guy. He burned down barns. He really threatened horses in general. He was a real horse threatener. And then he kept him awake. So it's like, yeah, he's going to die.
Yeah. Now there's a quick scene where Ben Foster shows again. He's a monster. He finds the stagecoach that he thinks that Russell Crowe's in, but because of the ruse that they did at the farmhouse, it's like, no, it was a decoy. But he just he asks the guy questions and he burns him alive in it.
He basically is like, I'll let you go if you answer the questions. He answers the question. He doesn't let him go. No honor. No code.
No honor. And the town that they're going to meet is contention.
Yep.
And it's 80 miles back the way they came. It's just real, it's real good stuff. There's forming everyone's going to convene at Yuma. It's going to be great.
Right.
There's this little scene between Peter Fonda, who's the stagecoach driver from earlier.
He's the Pinkerton, right?
He's the Pinkerton, and Russell Crowe, because the Pinkerton. Yeah, we know with the Pinkerton, and he and Russell Crowe throws right back at him, and he's like, apparently, because he was like, Peter Fonda is like this really religious guy, and he's like, what I did was righteous, and what I'm doing is righteous, and Russell Crowe cites like, well, in like 10 years ago, you weren't doing anything righteous. You were killing women and children. Apparently, Jesus doesn't love the Apache, which is just, I find that. And there's also another quote where he says, like, even bad men love their mamas. And it's a part of the same
he says
grayness.
that after he hurls Fonda off of a cliff.
Oh, yeah, and then he
Fonda
hurls
dies. Fonda dies by being thrown off of a cliff because he basically calls Russell Crowe's mom. He says, like, you came from the rancid womb of a whore or something. Real mean. And so men love dead women. Like, again, women die. He says even a bad guy. He says you never knew when to shut up. That's key because, again, daddies love quiet. Stop talking.
Yeah, I love that you love this so much.
And then he says even a bad guy loves his mama, because it's just two very dad things, right? Two right after another. And then later, there's so much of Christian Bale saying to his teenage son, like, don't talk to him. Stop talking. Nobody talk. Be quiet.
That's true. Yes.
It's quiet. You got to be quiet.
And I think that it's not just you got to be quiet for quiet's sake. Like in that case of stop talking to him, it's you knowing what we know about you, Russell Crowe. Talking to the innocent in general is just wrong. Moral purity is salvation. And I think that dad movies will often offer this, but at the same time offer the idea that everything does get corrupted or killed. Yeah. So it's like Sisyphus. It's pushing the boulder up the hill. You know, like it's never going to be done.
But this is, by the way, kind of around what I would consider the most daddy scene. So he throws Peter Fonda to his death.
Yeah.
And then this is when he's like, don't talk to him and stuff. They're all sitting around a fire. It's three daddies and a teenage boy talking about Dodge City and about the big city and about like, women will do everything. Women will do stuff to you you never forget. And then the doctor is like, they'll give you a disease you'll never forget. And this is just the most daddy thing. It's three daddies talking to a young kid about being a man.
This
going
is
to the
what it
big
means
city.
to be a daddy. Yeah. Oh, I love it.
And they're playing. They're having a nice. They're kind of having a nice conversation. These two guys and this criminal.
Yeah. Well, again, the moral grayness. But this night at camp, it's attacked by, and like Wade, we haven't used his name, but Wade is Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
He actually gets a hold of a gun and he figures out, he's like, based off the firing pattern, he's like, this is not my men. They don't fire like this. So he goes out and he just kills three Apache warriors essentially. And he saves the entire posse.
Yep. It's the larger reverence for the larger system, which is like, we're here playing cops and robbers, but we're all on the side of America, and America loves fucking over the Native Americans. Yeah. So must we also fuck them over. They're they're the big air quotes others. And so, like, we have
in a world of gray, it's black and white, and we're the white
guys. Exactly. Because we're over here doing cops and robbers, but there is a larger system that we must respect, and we have barged on their land. Like, they know it. They're like, we're going into Apache territory. We are on their land, and what do we do on their land? We fuck them over.
And it's like a scene after we just applied this idea of, like, oh, you're going to use the Native American, like, I guess Jesus don't like the Apache. Like, they are a symbol of innocence and, like, we should protect them because they're people. And then, I mean, it's not like this movie is saying, like, that they're not people or anything like that. It's just one of those historical, like, how do you deal with it? Well, dad movies just bulldoze right through it. Right. That's how they deal with it. And they're like,
listen, there's racism during this time, but not like our guys, you know?
Not our guys.
And this happens later with the Chinese workers where it's like Russell Crowe's hanging out with them. He's fine with them. Luke Wilson, who is in this for some reason, they're the racist people, so they're bad. They got to go. But not our guys. I mean, yes, they're not questioning the system, but they're not. Yeah, that's a big part. And also with Russell Crowe fighting off these Native Americans, the Apaches, he is providing for the posse, which is a big fucking dark daddy moment. Like he is providing for them. He is their daddy in that moment.
He just took care of this problem.
Yeah.
And so he comes back after doing the deed, and Russell Crowe is clearly like, well, now I'm in charge and I have a gun, so I'm getting out of here. Give me my keys so I can uncuff myself. And Christian Bale, in protest, throws the handcuff keys into the into the darkness, and he gets knocked out because that's what happens when you cross Russell Crowe. And
but
Russell Crowe still
him.
escapes, but now he doesn't kill him.
Honor.
But he does take their horses.
Yeah.
And Christian Bale is like, there's no reward for taking him halfway to the train, is there? So we know that this is only solidified Christian Bale's desire to seek justice,
right?
/ money. So now it's a battle of the wills. Christian Bale will track him down like a Tommy Lee Jones in The Fugitive.
Yep.
And Russell Crowe again has shown restraint against cruelty. He just needs to get to his gang. And you're right, a wild Luke Wilson appears. It's like a nearby mining / railroad encampment, and they find Russell Crowe. They notice his shackles, and they're like, I recognize you, so we're just going to hold you and get the reward money. But the posse arrives, what's remains of them.
They have no honor.
They see that they have no honor. They're torturing Russell Crowe with like electrics.
Yeah.
And that's just going too far. And when kind of they're like, that ain't moral. Luke, I think Alan Tudyk says that. Luke Wilson is like, moral ain't got a damn thing to do with it.
It's like, they're gonna go. They gotta go.
They gotta go. You're exactly what, you just want a pound of flesh, and the problem is that you will become a monster even if you're fighting for the right side.
They're also big city railroad folk.
Yep.
Or they represent that. So
you're not bad men until circumstances led you down a path where you abandon morals.
Yep.
So really, like all Westerns, it's about moral fortitude. That's what makes a good daddy. It's that you just got to stay strong when the night is darkest. Anyway, there's a scuffle because obviously this has to come to a head. Russell Crowe escapes, and the railroad posse attacks our posse, so we have good guys against good guys, and they kill Alan Tudyk, and that's just the price of justice, baby.
Yeah,
the righteous and innocent will die.
They get away because they're clever. They use an explosion, which is key, and they collapse the tunnel.
Very clever.
And I just want to note that the son, Christian Bale's son, starts gaining respect for him because, and I want to talk about this later. Violence starts bringing them together.
Yeah, baby.
Violence brings dads together.
Violence out of necessity.
Yeah, of course.
As
not
determined by the daddy.
Yeah.
That is what is that when it's necessary, that gets the respect. So they arrive in contention, where the train will arrive and take them to Yuma, or take Russell Crowe to Yuma.
Yeah.
And that's all they have to do. The remaining last 45 minutes of the movie is just hold up in this town. Russell Crowe keeps talking. This is when they arrive. Russell Crowe keeps talking about fucking. He's like, there's a can show on the hour, every hour. And then he's like, how many brides have taken this view while he's on the bed in the bridal suite? And it's just, once again, you got to keep it fresh. It's a dad movie. We got to talk about, there's not enough women here, so we got to talk about fucking, I guess,
Yeah.
Which is just a real weird. But, I guess it's just, once again, I think it's also to remind us that Russell Crowe is a character of some form of ill repute. And he offers Christian Bale, he's like, I'll pay you $1,000. You're making $200 to take me, and I'll pay you $1,000 to just take me to my gang right now. Because the gang is coming. You don't have a lot of men in this town. But Christian Bale's principles won't let him take that deal.
It's the fucking principle of the thing.
And
to the point that Ben Foster shows up, he rallies the evil town with the power of speech. That's important. He gives a speech. And to the point that everybody else, the railroad people, are like, we're done. Like, you're done, Christian Bale. Like, I'll pay you. The railroad goes like, I'll pay you and let's give up. Well,
right. But Christian Bale's in his head. He's like, nah, you're not going to pay me because you're going to be dead. So like, there's that too.
Yes, but it's the fucking principle. Russell Crowe's like, I'll pay you even more. He's like, no. The other guy's like, I'll pay you to give up. He's like, no. I'm getting him. We're getting on that fucking train. We're making the goddamn train. It's the principle of it. I need to prove to my son that I will get this done, even if it fucking kills me. And Russell Crowe gets it. He fucking respects it.
Yes, Russell Crowe understands that because he's like, that's integrity. That's true bravery. Now, I want to unpack a little bit about that conversation about like, take the $1,000 over the $200 because it really narrows down the focus of something that's exclusively daddy to me, which is Christian Bale asks in response, like, how stupid do you think people are? They'll know I took money from you when I start spending it.
Right.
And I think that's important for two reasons. One, because in Christian Bale's mind, it's not about money, even though he's always said that from jump, because that represents that Christian Bale is actively trying to be humble and a reluctant hero. He knows that the thing that he says all the time is not true and that he's got more like legitimate and moral like reasons to be doing what he's doing. But two, at the same time, his example is that his reputation will be his undoing.
Right.
And I think that that's huge because it's actually more important that people see him as a good man than his family and he leading an easier life. It's the principle that trumps all other values. It's the
honest living. He wants to make an honest living.
Yeah.
And honest means not giving up.
As a good man.
Yeah. And a brave man. Because what we learn is that he lost his leg because it was shot off during a retreat by one of his own people. And so he says, like, imagine, looking your son in the face and telling him that. So it's like he wants to prove to his son that he did the right thing, that he gives his family the right reputation, and that he provides for his family.
And that he also does and he's like, the honest work thing. Yeah, it's absolutely comes down to it.
Everybody has given up. He's like, we're getting to Wally World. God damn it. Everybody. Even his son is like, maybe we should give up, Pa. And he's like, no. You take my son. Everybody gets away. You take my son. You tell everyone, son, that I did this. If I die, I die doing this. I'm getting him on that train.
On that fucking train.
And Russell Crowe is like, I am so impressed. I'm going to reward you with personal information about myself. Because personal information is earned in a daddy film. I realized that in this one. Tommy Lee Jones in The Fugitive being like, I don't care. You have to earn Tommy Lee Jones to care. Right?
Right.
And in this, Christian Bale tells the story about when he read the Bible and how it was when his mom left him at a train station.
Abandoned him.
Or maybe she died. Who knows? It's the last time he saw her.
It's the West.
And later, Bale gives information about his son being sick. And so
currency, baby.
Yeah, they're respecting each other now. And so they've respected each other. They've earned the right to tell each other personal things about each other.
And I love that the way that this movie shows the Russell Crowe mom story, because it's almost like it's showing, it's the only information we get. And so we're like, we look at these two parallel protagonists kind of deals, and we're led to assume that this is the trauma that Russell Crowe went through as a boy that led him, this otherwise good man, down a rotten path. Right. At one point, Russell Crowe responds to Logan Lerman, Christian Bale's son, kid, I wouldn't last 5 minutes leading an outfit like that if I wasn't rotten to hell. So it's just one of those things where he's like, that shit, it's all wrapped up. That's why he's a bad guy. That's it. That's all it is. Because that's what dads want, is that confidence and security in that daddy code.
Oh, yeah.
Russell Crowe's gang essentially starts to descend upon their little holdup, and we get the scene where it's kind of all is lost point. where Christian Bale decides, I'm going to take it upon myself because you killed like basically everyone else. It's just me and you now, Russell. Me and you. I'm taking you to that goddamn train, which is like, you know, basically 100 yards in that direction.
And basically, he's so convincing about the principle of it that what is about to happen is Russell Crowe begins to help Christian Bale get him to jail.
He helps him so much.
Yep. It becomes an escort mission where Russell Crowe is like, we need to get me to jail. It's the fucking principle of it.
It's the principle of it.
He
it's
also,
not like he could go away at any time. He's won already.
Right. There's also 2 bits of information. Christian Bale asked the railroad man, and I love this because it's all about respect and the bigger thing. He says, you give my family $1,000. If I die, you give them $1,000. And he looks to Russell Crowe, and Russell Crowe goes, I heard him. Meaning he is the witness.
You're good on your word. If you don't, man, you better be good on your word.
I'll fucking find you.
Like Russell Crowe's gonna go out of his way to kill this one guy.
Right.
Because,
so at this point, Russell Crowe is like, if I don't get on that train, this family will not get that money. So like he wants to help he wants to be a dad to this family and help provide. Teams up with Christian Bale to provide for the family. We also learn that he's broken out of Yuma like 3 times. And so what you realize is the stakes aren't that high for Russell Crowe.
Yeah, Russell Crowe's like just enjoying a little story.
Right. He's like, oh, Yuma, yeah, that place is a fucking cinch.
That fucking place sucks.
Yeah.
He's like, I also love that this is in this little quiet before the calm before the storm. He gives his son a talisman. He's like, take this back to Ma. And Christian Bale's son basically says, I was wrong about you, Pa. You know, and so we get that closure, that sweet, sweet closure where the respect is achieved.
Yeah. And we also get poetry near the end with the cattle, but we'll get to that. And I want to note the fact that Russell Crowe's escaped from Yuma, that might have been a producer note. All I know is that was really important because it's like, in order to believe Russell Crowe would essentially turn himself in, you kind of need that information where it's like, oh yeah, it doesn't even fucking matter to me.
It's like, matter to me. Yeah, it's almost like we get the vibe that he's like, I just want to see if Christian Bale could do it. Like at this point, I'm invested.
It's the principle. He's like, let's do it. Let's get me on that train.
It's not cavalier like that. I think what the movie's trying to say is that he doesn't want to see him die because he's like, you're a better man than anyone in my gang. So like basically my internal moral code tells me that you need to survive. That's what
he lightly tries to get away during the shootout, but then like Christian Bale he basically like has Christian Bale. He chokes him out. And then Christian Bale is like, no, the principal. And he's like, all right, fine, let's do it. It's
so sweaty, dude. He's like, I'm no hero. The only battle I ever saw, I was in retreat.
That's when he reveals that, and that's what it takes, where he's like, all right, we're going to prove to this man's son that he's a hero. Me and you, we're going to team up.
We're going to team up. We're going to do this team up and show.
The point that when he gets on the jail the first time, he goes, well, you did it, Dan. Like he's an NPC congratulating him at the end of the mission. Like, it's just like, you're going to fucking do this, Christian Bale. I'm rooting for you. We're all rooting for you.
Right. There's multiple sequences, at one point, like Russell Crowe is even like, hey, look behind you. Like, because Christian Bale has to like, he's like, I'm going to give you these little rewards. And like, I don't care about my own men. Like, I'll kill any of them. Like, who gives a fuck?
This is the first person he gives a shit about. Him and his son. Like, he's finally learned what it means to actually be a daddy, to care about a family. It's just not his family. He's too late for that.
And this I kind of like because it shows that, like, he's flippant with lives, but it does, like, they intentionally basically contrast it with Ben Foster's character, because there's a sequence where he's barking orders to his men and they're just not listening. They're just shooting randomly. He's like, no, the guy in the white hat.
Right. After Ben Foster basically gets all the criminals of the town, and the criminals are all like, what do we do? We kill these guys?
Just shooting everything.
And so
it shows that like the disposability of men can happen on either side.
Yeah.
And that's like, once again, it's that moral grayness, but it's also just like, it shows you the difference between Russell Crowe and like purely evil person like Ben Foster. They like to remind you that before the final kind of strokes of this movie. And there's another conversation much in like the choke out sequence that you were talking about, where when there's another quiet in the battle, because imagine in between all this, there's shootouts everywhere. But Russell Crowe asked earlier in the movie why he lives on this dying ranch. Why do you make your family suffer? And he accuses Christian Bale of being stubborn. And then Christian Bale tells him, no, it's not because I'm stubborn. We had to stay. My youngest boy got tuberculosis, and all of the doctors told me he needed a dry climate, so he needed to stay here. Right. Again, soft daddy needs hard daddy to know that he's a little bit hard.
Right. Yeah. And hard daddy is like, oh, I had sex with a bartender who had that problem too. So I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
We're not run by ego. We're run by principle.
Yeah.
Anyway, they arrive at the 3:10, but of course, train's running late. Goddamn government.
Government. Yep. Late train.
And
he got
Christian
there
Bale's,
on time.
And this is, I think, what you were talking about with that poetry. Christian Bale, his boy, works up some courage and runs away from his spot in the hotel, and he frees the herd at a crucial time.
Yeah, which is what happened at the beginning.
Mimicking his father's initial tactic, but Christian Bale shot down by Ben Foster in like the final moments.
Right when he gets him on the train, he's in the jail, and Russell Crowe's like, "You did it, Dan. You got me on that train." And Christian Bale is shot in the back.
That's right.
Dishonorable by Ben Foster, who is basically the crime son, right? Like, or you could call him his work son. Like Russell Crowe, I want to talk about this because it also plays into the next thing: work dad versus family dad. And basically, the bank robbery is Russell Crowe's work daddiness, right?
Yeah, that's work dad.
He's work dad. That's what his job is. And now Christian Bale is becoming, like in his son, he became invested in this family. That's family dad. And Russell Crowe lived his whole life not caring about family dad. And he was always a work dad. And now it's hit this moment where he watches his work life betray this family dad life, and he rejects the work life because work isn't everything.
Because work isn't everything. You need a balanced life, and
or you have to choose. You have to choose. You can be a work daddy, but you can't be a family daddy. That's the struggle, the daddy struggle. And yeah, he kills Ben Foster, who's probably at this point like, the fuck did I do? And he kills him hard.
And he kills the rest of this gang. He kills everyone.
Ben Foster is like, Ben Foster's is like, I think I did everything right.
I think I won, right?
Yeah, like what? Ben Foster at the last minute knows, because earlier he notices that Russell Crowe's kind of like running with Christian Bale and and he's like, is he fucking, are they working together?
What's this deal? Yeah, but Ben Foster isn't quick enough to kind of understand that. And in general, you get the sense that Russell Crowe is just like, I just want to clean the slate. I honestly did not like those guys.
Yeah, it's also like, I'll find a new posse.
Like he's the stereotypical fastest gun in the West, like the concept is that he is the superhero or just super powered individual that no one can really kill. But in the last, so now we got dying Christian Bale, or dead Christian Bale at one point, this point. And Russell Crowe, and the only people who remain are Russell Crowe and Christian Bale's boy. And Logan Lerman points his gun at Russell Crowe. But Russell Crowe is just so terrifying that he just looks him down.
Yeah.
He's just like, nah, kid.
There's also this respect again.
It's respect, and it's also just like, you don't want to go down this road, boy.
Yeah.
And he's like, your pa trained you to be better than that. You need to be like your father at the beginning of the film.
All in the gaze, but it is true, because they do this thing where he says like, that boy's got wild eyes, like he could be a killer someday. There's a lot of like, will he, won't he? Yeah. And
that's
this is
the whole
him
point.
Rejecting that moment.
That's the 3:10 to Yuma, baby.
Yeah.
It's the Christian Bale's boy at the end of the film deciding, I could go down this path and become a Russell Crowe, or I can become like the quote unquote coward, but really just the man with more moral integrity.
Exactly.
My own
But
father.
Christian Bale has done it. He's daddied hard enough. It killed him, but he taught him the principle of making this train that his son. Now Christian Bale's dead. He can't say any more. He has no more say in this.
Right.
But he has managed to make not just his son convinced, but Russell Crowe essentially is like, no, I'm getting on this train. And
I'm going into jail.
Yeah, and he gets in the train and he goes to jail.
Which is bizarre. It's even more bizarre than the determination of I'll just kill my entire crew.
It's the principle of it. He's got to go to jail. It's the
principle.
principle. But he calls his horse last minute because, he's not staying in jail. But he's going to go in that jail because then Christian Bale gets his money and his son learns a lesson and he is providing for that family because Christian Bale, this is the secret, right? Christian Bale is dead, right? Russell Crowe is doing it. And so you could argue an unsophisticated dad might say, well, Russell Crowe ultimately is the dad. He won. But no, Christian Bale has daddied so hard that he made another dad for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He got a surrogate dad.
Yeah, he dad so hard that the other daddy carried out his dadness. And so Christian Bale in his death becomes the ultimate dad.
Yes. The sacrificial dad, the Jesus dad.
Yeah.
Whose deeds make others act better. And and then the train goes off and that's 3:10 to Unum.
Yep. And well, I got a lot to say about some of the main things from this movie, some of the main dad themes.
Well, in order to have that that important themic conversation, we need to have a better surrounding, and that's why for this we moved to a new segment. We put on our robes, and we grab our pipes and we go to the smoking room. And this is where we also talk about the list of what we have determined is what our dad tropes, what makes truly, we've hinted at a lot of them, but what makes a dad movie. So take it away, Dave.
Well, I was going to ask, do you want to talk about the ones we've already established? Because I have some ones that I'm like proposing for that reflect the previous ones as well.
Yeah. I mean, let's just go through this real quick, but let's talk mostly about the new ones. We got the reverence for the system. We got inciting incident is a tragedy. We got women in peril. We got guile in fights, violence only when necessary. We got stay the course mentality. We got being underestimated. We got the idea of being a parent, or I guess this one we don't have daughters, we have a son. There's less team building in this one, but there is male bonding. So there's that.
Well, I have something to add to that one.
Yeah.
I propose that there might be a rule that violence brings dads together. Because in this film we get it, but also the dad hits and kills someone. And that repairs their relationship. Robin Hood and Little John fight, and then they bond. Russell Crowe and Paul Bettany.
I think there's something
bond
we said
over
about
war.
Testing.
Tommy Lee Jones bonds with Harrison Ford after they murder the bad guy. A plane crash brings together a whole football team, and we are Marshall. Violence is.
I think it's more that violence brings dads together because it tests their mettle.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
understand?
It might just be a common
you up
pattern.
and say you are. Yeah, it is a common pattern, though. That's for sure.
It's not necessarily something we'll nail down, but it is something I was noticing. I also
we talk about how their dicks work.
Their dicks work, obviously. Yeah, that's a big one.
Obviously.
Less women in peril, but there are women in peril. Can I a couple other new ones? Dads provide. I was thinking about this. Robin Hood, he gets money for his people. Russell Crowe in Master and Commander, he is providing for his boat a victory. He has to give them something. The fugitive, he fails to provide. That's the tragedy. A lot of the energy is the idea of a daddy's making an honest living. Well, like the fancy bureaucrats cheat them out. like fancy lawyers and judges and shit like that. That's just another pattern I think we should look out for. I'm not ready to like set that in stone or anything.
No, I think it's a part of like we've been talking about women and children or being a parent is like most dad movies, your protagonist has a family of some kind,
right?
Or they lost a family, like you mentioned in The Fugitive. But I think it all comes around back with like, it's because he's a provisional man,
right? Dads like quiet. I think that one is coming up for me. Master and Commander, they literally have to hide me quiet. Robin Hood, they have to hide me quiet. That's a common thing. Is like you got to be quiet at the right times. You can't. Open your mouth.
That to me, that's kind of like, especially when it's a tactic, because it's not like what you're talking about. I think is broader than just a tactic. But like when it's a tactic, like the examples you just gave, right, that kind of folds into the guile in fights. Like it's the idea of using out of the box thinking.
But it's also stuff like snitching and talking and like opening your mouth and like giving out too much information.
Like exactly. It's more of the principle of quietness, the idea of not using your acts as opposed to using your words.
And it's also about the fact that if you're a quiet dad, you get to do the thing that I think is very common in all of these, giving speeches. Daddies love speeches. American President, it's a series of speeches. Any courtroom drama is literally solved with a speech. That's how courtroom work. The ending of The Fugitive, he gives a speech to accuse him of the bad guy. Robin Hood, there's several speeches to rally people. Same with Master and Commander. We Are Marshals. Almost every sports movie has a speech scene
that rallies the troops.
And even in this one, Ben Foster gives a speech. Speech is powerful. You quiet and then you say a lot in one moment. And it changes the course.
When you're moved. Because that's how daddies work. Is they're just in the background, doing very little, just providing.
And then quiet.
When shit really hits the fan, they go, everyone shut the fuck up.
Yep.
All right. I'm going to solve this for you and tell you like it is.
Yeah. The one thing I want us to think about, this isn't like a rule. This is just another pattern I just started picking up on, which is job dad versus family dad. I don't know what this means, but in The Judge, he's a job dad, and then he goes home and he meets this old flame, family dad, right?
Right.
I guess Robin Hood, I'm trying to think if Robin Hood has any. This obviously has it. The next thing we do has it. There is a lot of like, can you provide? The Fugitive. He's out being a job dad while his wife is killed. There is this idea that the balance between being a job daddy and a family daddy is a struggle. And the next film we will talk about has a lot of that.
That's all it is, but yeah.
Yeah. But I think that there's tastes of it in these previous ones. Robin Hood's family falls apart while he's out in the Crusades doing his job. I want to keep an eye on that premise. That's all. Yeah. I don't know what it leads to, if there's a conclusion there. I'm just noticing that there's that idea.
Obviously, this one, to me, the big one is the question most dad movies do, which is, what would you do? That's... Are you a utilitarian? I mean, for the most part, I think dads are making the hard decision for the greater good. That's the big deal.
Yeah.
And there's obviously, because the nature of the Western, it's about vigilantism. You kind of have to challenge authority, buck authority, and do the right thing according to your own personal code. And that's really I think, to me, that's the bold, aspects of 310 to Yuma. There's also, for the little ones that I've been mentioning, a few, there's not as much, piss and shit in this movie, not as much singing and laughing with the boys, but there is linear storytelling, which is something we kind of brought up in the last two episodes, which is we don't want any of this complex filmmaking shit. Just show me chronologically the events.
Mumbo jumbo. Yeah. That art school crap. Just, show it in order, no flashbacks. You're right. And I just want to say, I feel like we have this reverence for the system idea, and that goes in with the principle, doing things for the principle of things. and it feels like a little muddled, but it also doesn't, right? Where it's like there's always this overruling principle and system.
It's determined whether
you
or
have to
not
have reverence for. If it's America, you know, like American president, there's a lot of stuff where he does because of the principle he reflects on, you know, what it is to be, you know, the president. There's a lot of this reverence going around. It's just, it sort of exists with, like, it's always in this own bubble, right? Where it's like, if, you know, in The Fugitive, he's a doctor. So he has reverence for the system of being a doctor to heal someone.
Right.
It's your master. Reverence for whatever the higher calling of that character is.
The higher calling, yeah. I think it's important, or to me, it's starting to develop for me in that, like, because you mentioned this muddiness.
It's almost you have to have a code.
It's whether or not in the reality of the movie and the rules of the movie, if the authority figures are doing the higher code or not.
You know what it is?
Leadership, your leadership as the dad protagonist is beyond reproach regardless. But like if the authority disagrees with you, now they're one of the problems. And so you don't have reverence for that system any longer.
Does it? All right. If I could sum it up, is it don't respect authority, respect rules? It's
respect the code.
The code, yeah. You have to have rules and a code, not authority. That's what it comes down to. Like you have to have you're leading a household, and there has to be fucking rules. And if you break those rules, then fuck you. You get stabbed in the neck.
You get stabbed in the neck with a fork.
Yeah,
like Kevin Durand. It really comes down to that, because most of the landscapes of the dad movies are a morally gray world where it's cruel and it's punishing. And the reason that the people usually disobey the code is because they feel that they don't have to, because the world is oppressive enough.
Right.
And that a true dad will not stand for.
Yes.
Also, his dick works. So
yeah, that's got to work. Yeah,
I think that's the list right there.
Yeah, I think we did it.
I think that's 310 to Yuma.
Hey, Abe, what are we watching next?
Hey, you guys wanna talk about some sweet heists?
Yeah.
Ooh, the heist film.
What heist film could we possibly? Oh, there's so many. There's so many, Abe.
Dear listener, you should take the next month at some point and watch the 3-hour film Heat. Because that's what we're going to be talking about. Al Pacino and Robert De Niro, baby.
So many fucking daddies.
It's another dad off.
Oh shit.
Oh, I love it.
Michael Mann.
I love to watch these.
Man right there in the name.
He's just man.
Yeah. I'm Michael Mann. That's the most man name you can have.
So this is fun. And it'll be fun. It'll be fun in the bun next time. That's it, I guess. I have nothing else to report. Dave, do you want to talk a little bit about if people loved your voice, where they can find you?
People love my voice. They can go to they can check out Gamefully Unemployed, GAMEFULLY Unemployed. That is the podcast network I do with Tom Ryman. We have a Patreon, which is patreon.com/Gamefully Unemployed as well. We watch movies mostly. That's most of what we do. We do a show about the X-Files, Fox Mulder's a Maniac. We do a show about Batman. Tom and Jeff watch Batman. We do stuff with you guys, the Small Beans, Star Trek Next Futurama, Spiel Boys. And then we do like regular, just available for all. We just watched our film critic show or whatever, or we watch whatever's out. And Hypecast, looking at trailers, weekly news. Podcasts, it's like a podcast.
It's like a podcast.
So check that out.
It's like a series of podcasts.
Yeah, yeah. It's a network,
just like
a
here,
podcast.
Which, so definitely go do that, because I have ultimate dad respect for Dave.
Mm-hmm.
I would put myself in jail and take myself to Yuma for him.
Me too.
Because we just see eye to eye about, podcasts. And, more about that. Obviously, if you're listening to this on the free feed at Small Beans, go check out patreon.com/smallbeans. We need to keep the lights on over here, and also you will get a shit ton of more content if you go and do that. For like $5 you get like crazy amount of stuff. So
hell yeah,
definitely go check it out. And that's it. I think that's a sode.
No, that's it. May all your horses be safe
or explode
or
in dynamite.
Yeah, either one.
Whatever gets you off.
Oh yeah.